Well, this is Pat McCarthy. Welcome back to McCarthy Performance. Today we're going to do a little prep work on the bottom of this 350 block. We're going to make a 383 out of it. I'm getting ready to put it up on the milling machine. Got the BHJ 2-deck system I'm going to be using on it. Going to just kind of gloss over a few things. I'm not going to do the whole job, but you'll get the idea what I usually do on a normal prep for an engine that goes through my shop. What I like to do is I like to deburr the caps. The air compressor will probably fire up, and there's not much I can do about that. We talked about that before. So I'm going to break this edge lightly. Hit this lightly, just break the edge off of it, of the cap. I'll do that with a small file. You just want to break it. Then what I do is I knock the edges off of it, like that. Hit the edge of the cap. I have a ground plate on the other side of the shop that a friend of mine ground for me. I put sandpaper on it, and I'll lightly lap these. We're not trying to change the machining of them. We just want to get that off. And you can hear that's grit. That's material that's setting up higher than the machine surface on the cap. So we'll hit that a little bit. Okay, and then on this edge here, I use an MX wheel. MX, it's basically a Crate X wheel. It's got grit suspended in a rubber matrix. So that take the burr off of that. So I got the cap pretty much the way I want it. Okay, we're gonna do this one here. I'm gonna do this one, and I'm not gonna probably do them all. I got a bigger file. Take the edges off so the high spots off the cap. That's all you need, just to break the edge. Not trying to narrow it up. I'm not trying to change anything. I'm just trying to break the edges off stuff. And if you don't know why you want to break the edges off of stuff, these sharp edges, and you put the bearings in, they'll scrape the back side of the bearings. It's not a real big deal. It just looks very unprofessional. And then I break it like that. And you know, if you're cleaning the engine and that, paper towels won't snag on this and make a bunch of lint. You don't have to worry about parts or metal shavings falling into your parts. Factory, when they build these, if there's burrs hanging off of them, they don't have somebody go and clean them off. So I just walk this down here. That. And if you don't want to do it that way, you can use sandpaper. 220 would probably be a good place to start. Okay, then I take a block. There it is. Take a little stone or a sanding block and just crisscross the surface slightly. Like I said, we're not trying to change any of the machining, we're just trying to make sure there ain't no junk or burrs on it. Okay. I like the caps torqued up when I, at least the inner ones when I mill the block deck. Okay, so we'll just lightly touch it with the die grinder. I have a Tootsie Roll on the end of it, basically the same paper. I'll just hit this hole just a little bit just to break the machining edges off of it. That's all we have to do. Just to make sure nothing's hanging off the edges of whatever I just removed and rolled back. Okay, now I'll lap the cap lightly. Okay, so the cap is lightly deburred. I sanded the sides lightly. Yeah, you can see that they're not flat from the factory. Usually when you see this is what we call a tang. So usually tang to tang is usually the way they are. So that this one will go forward. You always want to make sure you have a little bit of crush on the register. That would be the crush on the register. It's a snap fit. They should be a snap fit. All this stuff will be washed again, of course, after I'm done machining it, boring it, and all the other things I'm going to do to this engine block before we start putting it together as a 383. And we're on a start of a, I wouldn't say a long road, but I wouldn't necessarily call it a short trip. Okay, so we're going to do the next one. Take the cap off. You just want to break the edges. We're not trying to remove too much unless you see, like this side, it's got a lot of tear in it. Lots of parts of the surface where, you know, they don't, these things ain't jewelry by a long shot anyways. I guess that probably didn't sound right, but anyways, they're most certainly not a piece of jewelry, let's put it that way. Okay, pretty much got that. Take my stone, crisscross sand it. If you can hear that, that's the burr off the end of the housing bore. There, we'll just take this, stick my Okay, we got the cap to do now. This cap is like a razor. I mean, you can shave with that thing. I'm not kidding either. We just want to break the edges. We're not trying to remachine anything with a whizzer wheel or a scotch pad or whatever you want to call them that everybody's doing their cylinder heads and remachining them thinking they're getting them flatter. We're just breaking the edges off things. You know, these things here will cause you so much trouble if you don't know what the hell you're doing with them. And most people don't. They buy one of these things and they think, oh boy, I'm going to resurface my heads and my deck with this, and I'm going to clean everything up, and I'm going to get all of them rusties or dark marks out of my intake or my head surface, and boy, it'll be just like going to the machine shop. It's not. Anytime you're starting to tip in and go after a rust spot with one of these, you're taking material off. These things destroy engine blocks. If you don't believe me, I got a couple I can show you where people have done stupid things with these things. Best learn how to use a file and a stone before you even use these. And if you don't know how to use a file or a stone, then don't even go into these, because you don't realize what you're doing with one of these, what damage you cause with one of these things. Into the rat. So I'm going to take my MX wheel, I'm going to take that off there, because that's like a razor blade. So I'm just going to... See what I broke. I just broke the edges off. That is not going to affect the bearing whatsoever. This one will sand a little bit better, and then I'm going to lap this cap, and then this one's done. This is one of the engines that come out of my hot tank. Had some guys talking about my hot tank saying, well, you know, they use hot tanks, but they prefer bake and blast. I guess it really was a statement that I made, my personal views. That's how I feel about it. I'm not going to change. I think I bought my hot tank used for 400 bucks. I've had it probably for 15 years now. I've had other shops clean my stuff long before that. I've been doing this for a little while. Some of my personal feelings on that, you know, whether you like it or not, you are free to your opinions, but that's, you know, that's kind of how I feel about baking and blasting stuff, and I don't think that's going to change. Sure, you can burn whatever's going to come out of that block with a baking blast system, but hot tank's going to soak it. That means it's going to get in every little nook and cranny, and it's going to get all the dirt out. You can bake it out, and you can blast as far as you can get in, but you're going to deal with distorted housing bores. You know, after the blast hits them, the lifter bores, the housing boards, if you don't protect them. Anything that isn't protected is going to get blasted. And that's a no-go for me, because I can take a crank and put it in my hot tank and it can soak in there. It means every single nook and cranny is going to get soaked, and the chemical is going to remove whatever's in there. You know, the stuff that's in that tank ain't exactly Lipton iced tea. Stuff is really nasty. And it does a very good job if you adjust it properly and you treat it properly. You know, I can run sheet metal, oil pans, everything under the sun in that thing, as long as it ain't aluminum or Babbitt, and I can throw 3 engine blocks in there and some stuff, and it'll do the job, and it'll do it all at once. I don't really like running it much because it does take a lot of electricity, so I try to run it only when I have to, and we're getting off on that. But anyways, I just wanted to mention that to the guys that are telling me online that they like their bake and blast system better than a hot tank. Well, hey, that's great. God bless you, man. I got $400 in my system, and I had to buy 2 heating elements for it. You know, when I've got stuff back right out of the shop and I need a bake and blast system, then maybe I'll think about it. But right now, I can do 3 blocks, a handful of other stuff, and after I'm done deburring this cap, I'll show you just how much I can put in that hot tank. And it's not even a full load, but anyways, I don't know why I'm talking about that. I guess I just was kind of surprised to see people saying that they feel that they like their bake and blast system so much better than my miserable hot tank, and I just think it's kind of funny that somebody'd even waste their time posting something like that. I mean, it was kind of an observation on my part and a feeling how I feel about it, and you can tell me how much you love yours. Unless you drop it off, I'm probably not going to change my opinion much. I mean, if you're going to drop off a bake and blast system to me for free, I could possibly change my opinion on it. But anyways, this is pretty basic stuff, and you know, but it should be done. Whether or not whoever's doing your work or prep work, or you know, whether or not you feel that this is worthy of your time, that's entirely your opinion. But we're getting getting set up to do a little bit more than one thing back here on this cap, and I'll show you what that other thing is. We're not trying to make anything bigger, we just want to break the edge off of it. Okay, we did that. We don't break the edge off this one. If you get off a little course, off track, it ain't a big deal too much with the sandpaper. You don't want to do that with a carbide. You'll make a mess out of things really fast. We're just going over it lightly, making sure all the burrs are off of it. Got a little bit of stuff going on there, and there's a big old burr on it. Break all that off. There, that's pretty darn good. We'll hit it with our stone. Good. Okay, I'm going to lap this cap and I'll be right back. Okay, so I broke the cap, lapped it down and broke the edges off of it. I'm going to hit this edge right here, that's where the seal rides. Hit that a little bit, and that one a little bit. Okay, that feels good. Of course, you know, you always got to run your finger over it, and there's a spot right there that's really nasty. That feels good. Okay, now we're going to put the cap on. Okay, what I do with these caps is I usually open them up a little bit in here and clean them up. This one ain't too bad. What you want to look for is you want to look for this transition in here, and you want to make sure that it's clean and free. And there's a break right there. There's a little edge right there, and I'm going to drop down in there and I'm going to remove that edge just a little bit. It ain't going to help much, but I just get into a habit of doing that stuff. I do it on camera. Now you don't want to get too crazy in here opening this hole up, because it intersects kind of close to the main housing board. You don't really want to break through that, but you just want to go in there and break off the burrs. Make sure there's nothing floating around in there that's going to come out and affect your engine. Okay, so we'll just put these in loose because I got to put my BHJ bushings in here that align it for the machine. So I'm going to roll this back a little bit. Not too much on this one. It ain't bad from the factory. Nobody's been in this engine. Okay, and we're not going to probably do much more than that. That's plenty good enough. Going to catch these two oil pulls. You don't want to go any wider than the sealing surface. You don't want to thin that out. You want that as wide as you can keep it. So don't go in here and remove any of this, or your oil pump may not seal up very good. There, that's done. You can spend hours and hours on prepping blocks, putting them back together. We're not gonna spend 2 days prepping this block, but we're gonna at least go over the basic things that I feel needed to make it a good rebuild. Okay, that feels good. Okay, so we got all our edges broke. We got all the surfaces smoothed out where they were machined, where metal was hanging off. And that feels good. They all feel pretty good. There's no metal hanging off of the sides of the block. That feels good. So we'll put the setup rings in it. Another thing, when you put these setup rings in, if you break these edges, then you're not driving that in. There is some variance between the housing boards, but not too much. But I've put flats in these so they don't disturb them much. But if you deburr them, you're pretty well good to go. But you want to make sure that you're not disturbing housing bore with the setup rings. Like I said, this doesn't get torqued down. This gets put on there so it's snug. And if this had to put a torque figure on it, I'd probably say about 25 pounds. Not a lot, just enough to center in the ring so it isn't not sitting flat. Probably not even 25 pounds, to be honest with you. Probably closer to 15. Just about as much as I can put on it with this 1/2 inch speed handle. Okay, that one's in there. So now we'll put this one in. Okay. Everything's got to be clean. Make sure there ain't no metal or nothing under here. Here's where I put my flats. That one sits in there nicely. Registered. Yeah, that looks, feels good, looks good, is good. I'll be getting back to the 781s probably towards the weekend or maybe next week. I'd take a break from that. I didn't know what to do, so I figured I'd do this. This is a fairly precise bar, so there's just a little bit of slop there just to slide her through. Okay. There. Now it's set up to go in the machine. Got my TrueDeck system on it. I got it all deburred. The bottom end until I put the crank in, then we'll have to check it again. Might have to do a little grinding. The rods that I use keeps the grinding down quite a bit on this area here. And you'll probably see them if you stick to watching my channel. I really don't know what to put on, what people want to see. It seems like the things that I think people want to see, they don't want to see, and stuff I think people would have no interest in. They're surprisingly looking at stuff that I posted. Well, we'll take her off the stand here and I'll show you what the BHJ plate looks like, and I'll be putting this in the mill so I can explain it more in detail, but I've got pictures. This assures that through the center line and the crank that this is a true surface. So we set the machine off of this surface, not the deck, and we cut them. So that's that. And that's what a small block Chevy looks like getting set up to go on my mill. Now, I have had a couple guys talk to me about this mill and says, oh, you know, you could get a polycrystal diamond or CBN, and that's basically a newer technology over the carbide that's on here right now. And this machine's extremely slow, and they make a kit that you can buy. It'll speed it up, and it'll do a very good job. And I know the guy that sells the kits. But I've already sharpened these by myself. I have no problem sharpening them, and they are sharp. And I set them up, and it takes effort. And probably, if I wasn't stubborn, I would adapt this machine to CBN or polycrystal diamond. But I have this machine here, which is my old Burco, and this is set up for CBN and polycrystal diamond, and I have this machine. So usually this machine here, if I've got an old flathead or something like that, this machine is very universal. It's very easy to set up. There's quite a bit of height here, you can see. With the other machine, there's parts I have to take out, set up risers, and it's got a table right there, and I can put a flathead head on that machine with that table, and it's very easy, straightforward to set up. With this machine, and it's dirty, but it's got these risers in here, and I'd have to take them all out and put an engine in there. And to be honest with you, which you're going to probably always get from me whether you like it or not, because I don't have much for bullshit. I've got engines making over 1,000 horsepower with multi-layered gaskets, and they're putting power adders on top of that. The surface that I'm getting off of that old machine right there with the variable speed on it, a Cometic gasket, I have no problem holding a Cometic head gasket. I know when they first come out, they said you couldn't do it with that machine, just wasn't going to happen. Well, I've put brand new LS's on that machine there, and I've had engines that other people have cut with CBNs, and they think this finish is smooth. It is smooth, and it's not flat. And I've dyed them, and I've taken pictures of it. That was before I got on the internet. Next time I get one in here, I'll show you, because what happens with CBN is once you're on the whole surface, the machine loads, and then when you hit the hole, the machine will drop. Now, depending on who's the machine, I'm not going to get into machines and equipment and all that. I don't want this to turn into a hate channel or somebody, you know, arguing with me on the internet. That's not what I put this channel on for. But some machines will load and unload with a CBN right where the holes are, so you can actually see the machine dive like this. It's in a wave. Now, with that machine, it's slow and it's heavy, and I've moved that machine. It is heavy, and it don't move. As long as the cutters are cutting, it's going to be pretty damn flat, depending on, you know, how the machine's set up. I've checked that machine. You know, it's as flat as I can make it, and I know it's flatter than this J-head mill. I know a lot of guys are milling on these things. I milled on this machine. It was the first machine, one of the first machines I got in my shop, and I was trying to mill heads with this machine here, and it worked. And you know, I made a cutter because I didn't have a lot of money, but I had a lot of time, and I made a cutter for it. And right here's the cutter, and it's dirty because I don't use it much. I don't use it hardly at all. It's been sitting more than it's been used, and I made that. And I'm here to tell you, a mill will do a great job And this mill wasn't really beat up bad. I mean, there's not a lot of holes in the table. I did that one. That was the proudest day of my life right there. I broke an end mill and it didn't break clean, and it spun it around and dug a hole in the table. Pissed me right off. But what happens with these is when you get the table all the way to the end, and if you're not working on a real big head, you could probably get away with it. You center it up into the table. But the table drops. And I don't know what guys are using for mills, but there's a couple different series, and this has got the smaller cross on the knee, I guess what you will call it. If it's out further, you know, it'll do a better job, but with this table's moving, it's sagging. And I did some small block heads on this thing, and I was so proud of them until I measured them and I found out that there was 2 thousandths drop on both sides. That isn't a lot, but I don't get that with this machine, and I most certainly don't get it with the old Burco back there. So I have my opinions, and I guess if you're watching me, you're going to hear them. I'm trying not to be controversial. I'm not saying my way's the best. This is the way I learned with this equipment and the stuff that I have in my shop. I learned on this equipment. And I've got buddies in the business with other equipment, and I know the downfalls, and I've done other work for other people for a while now. So I get to see a lot of different things. And I just feel economically, if a guy's starting out, I did this as cheap as a guy can do it, and slowly added tools. I don't want to ramble on, but anyways, I guess fair warning. If you're watching my channel, you're probably going to hear some things that maybe we don't agree upon, and at the end of the day, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But you're not going to get me to change what I'm doing unless you can prove it's financially feasible for me to do so, which means you're giving me a brand new machine. Thanks for watching. Try not to be so controversial in the next video.